Hello data lovers, so welcome back to the SQL Interview Pro series, and again in this video I will be solving few really interview questions of SQL, that too from the hard category, and these will be really helpful for your interview preparation. And you can also practice all these questions free of cost from Code Studio platform. I have provided the link in the description. And if you haven't checked the previous videos of this series, I would highly recommend to go and check those videos and solve those questions right now. And while watching this video, please make sure first read the problem statement and try to attempt this SQL query by your own, write your own logic and put it in the comment section. And also give some likes to this video so that I can continue this series in future. So now let's get it started. Alright, so this is our first question. The problem statement is find the team size. So we have a table employee with employee ID and team ID. Employee ID is the primary key. Write a query to find the team size of each of the employees. Return the table in any order. So this is our table, the input data, where we have employee ID, obviously it's a primary key, and which team each employee belongs to, right? This is the team ID. So what we need to do for each of the employee, we need to print the team size of that employee in front of it, for which team it belongs to. So if we look at this data, employee ID 1 works in team 8, 2 works in 8, 3 works in 8. So in total, if we look at the team 8, how many employees are there? 3 employees are there. So that would be the actual team size for team ID 8. And we need to print this value in front of all those employees who work in the team number 8. So this is the data for this one. For team ID 7, obviously one employee works here, so that is the count, and same for 9 as well. So this problem statement looks pretty much simple. I don't know again why it's in the hard category. So logic would be pretty much simple. We will use this same employee table 2 times and we'll join it together, and the second employee table, there we will be doing the group by operation. We will group by on the team ID and we'll take a count of total team members which are working in that team, and then we will do the inner join with the employee table on the team ID and we'll print that counted team size value in front of the each row. So let's solve it. Select E1 dot employee ID comma E2 dot team size from employee E1, this is the alias, inner join. So here we will be writing a sub query, that sub query to calculate the count of each team. So team ID comma count star as team size. Here it will be from employee table. This is the part, and group by on team ID, and we will give a alias name to this one E2. Then on condition for this inner join, it will be E1 dot team ID equals to E2 dot team ID. And now if we execute it, so we can see the expected output, which is exactly like this. So I don't think so this is very difficult to understand the logic, because we wanted the team size. So we did write this sub query where we calculated the team size, and then after that we did a simple inner join just to pick this team size value for each employee. So pretty straightforward. Moving on to the next question. This is our next question, top travelers. So we have a users table like ID and their name, and we have another table, rides table, where we have a ride ID, sort of primary key for this one, user ID here, and distance ID. So this data might be for ride hailing applications like Uber, Ola, Rapido, where users book particular ride and travel. So this is kind of the data. Write an SQL query to report the distance traveled by each user. So if we can see this rides table, here we have ride ID and which user booked that ride and how much distance was covered in a particular ride. So in total, we need to find the aggregation of a user ID for the distance it traveled throughout their rides in the table itself. So return the result table ordered by traveled distance in the descending order. If there is a tie, then we need to order it on the name in ascending order. So this is the user table, right? Alice, Bob, Alex, these folks are here. This is the ride table. So if we want to check for user ID 1, which is Alice, so here in the output we can see Alice is here and it is 120. So how this 120 is coming? If we look at user ID 1, right, user ID 1, so there is only one entry in the ride table and total distance was 120. So let's try for user ID 7. User ID 7 is Lee. So how many entries are there? So summation will be 230 plus 120, it becomes 350, and 100, it becomes 450. So this is the value we can see for Lee here, and same goes for Elvis. And for Donald, right, the user ID 4, in this table there was no entry for this one. So distance traveled by this guy is actually 0. So we need to take care this condition as well. So again, this is going to be pretty much straightforward. The idea first is to apply the group by operation on this rides table. So for each user ID, we will calculate the total distance covered. And then since we need to bring the name column in the final output table, we will join that intermediate grouped data with this users table on this ID, user ID column. And after that, we will simply apply the ordering based on the condition which has been given here to print the output. So let's do that. So select, and ultimately we need the output from the users table. So u dot name comma traveled distance, and that will be from the rides table. So traveled distance, and we need to actually calculate it as well. From users table, it will be aliased as u, and then we will do the left join. And why this left join is needed, not the inner join? Because as you can see, there is no entry for Donald in this ride table, and we need to take care of this scenario here. So left join means all of the entries from the left hand side table will be covered in the final output. So left join with this inner data which we are going to compute here. So here what it would be, select ID select user ID comma sum of distance as traveled distance from rides table group by user ID. So this is our intermediate data which we have computed, and we will give the alias name to this one as R. And after this we will do the conditions for left joining, which is u dot ID R dot user ID. And after doing this thing, we need to apply the ordering as well. So order by traveled distance R dot traveled distance descending, and if there is a tie, then u dot name ascending. This should be the ordering in the final result. And also we need to take care of this left join part where there is no entry for the user. So if we will do the left join, so the right hand side column will be null for this user ID, because on the left hand side we have users table where ID is the column, and while doing the left join, if there is no match found, user ID column will be null. So if that is the case, means this traveled distance part will also be null, and we need to use the 𝗏𝗃 function to populate it with a 0. So what we will do, we will put it in this 𝗏𝗃 function. So by any chance, if this is the not null value, that will be picked, and if in case it is null, so 0 will be picked, and we will name it like this. So now let's execute it. Alright, so looks like our data is fine, but the ordering of this one is getting changed, and looks like why it is happening, because in the order by I am referring to r dot traveled distance. So r dot traveled distance would be computed as null and these not null values, and null is something which is not identified for ascending descending, and it will be on the top, and later on it is derived as 0. So that is why this mismatch is happening. So what I need to do, I need to actually mention this column which I am projecting in the final select operation, not the one which I have derived in this inner table. So when I will replace it with this one, right, this ordering will be fixed. So this is the expected output which we can see here: 450, 450, 317, 12, 222, 120, and Donald at the bottom. So that was the expected output, and again pretty much simple, the aggregation and the joining part. This was the only thing which has to be taken care properly, and that we can do easily with the 𝗏𝗃. And you also got to know why this left join was actually needed. We could have done the inner join, but in that case Donald would not be included in the final result. Now let's come to the last and final question, that is the new users daily count. So we have a table named as traffic, user ID, activity, activity date. There is no primary key, and the activity column is the enum. It can have multiple values like login, logout, jobs, groups, home page. Write a SQL query that reports for every date within at most 90 days from today the number of users that logged in for the first time on that date. Assume today is 30th June 2019. So starting from 30th June 2019, if we go back 90 days, right? So what are number of days, or basically if we go back 90 days, then on each day which lies between this 90 days window, what was the distinct count of users who logged in for the very first time, right? Who logged in for the very first time on those particular dates. So that is something we need to compute. So if we look at this data, we have user IDs, their activities, and on which date they did some activity. So login, logout, all these activities we can actually see here. So as per the problem statement, these are the two dates, right? 1/5 and 21/6, which definitely lies between the 90 days of window. If we consider today is 30th of June 2019. Also, the distinct count of users who logged in for the very first time is this one, 1 and 2 user count. So let's try to verify why only 2 count. So if you focus on this 21/6, so 5th user ID 5th is also who logged in on this 21/6/2019. But if you focus on user ID 5, his first attempt for the login was on 1st of March 2019. So we are not going to consider this one for our counting, because this is pretty much understood that this guy made its first login on 1st of March 2019 and it is not lying in the window. So that's why we have discarded it. But again, for this 21/6/2019, we can see user ID 4 who made a login on this date itself, and before this date this user ID 4 didn't appear on this platform. So I am going to count it as a 1 distinct user count. Now verify for again 21/6/09. So we can see this user ID 2 made the login first time on 21/6 and also log out on 21/6. So we will be counting this entry as a distinct user count because this user made its first login attempt on 21,6. So that is why count for 21,6 is 2. And if we look at for this date 1/5/2019, so there is basically 3 entries we can see, and that is especially for user ID 1 and no any other entry for this date, right? And this also lies within the 30 days of window. That is why we have counted the distinct user ID count as 1 here. So this is the explanation and how we are actually going to solve it. So what we actually need to do, we need to focus on those dates for each user ID on which they made their first login attempt. That is the first thing we need to find. So how we can do that? For this thing, we will use the window function, and in the partition by we will use user ID, and we will try to identify on which date they made their first login attempt. So after doing the partitioning in the order by, we will use activity date in the ascending order. So in this way, we will get the first date for each user on which date they actually logged in into the system. And then after that, we will filter out those records who are not even lying between this 90 days of window. And after that, we will finally do the counting. So let me first write the second half of the query so that I can show you the intermediate output. So select star comma row number over partition by user ID order by activity date, and that too in ascending order as RNK, and from traffic table where activity equals to login, right? So this is the date which we are trying to identify. So now if I just execute it, so now if you focus on this output, you can see for each user we were able to focus on those activity days which were their login date as well, the first login date. But this is something which is we are getting 2 times for user ID 5, and obviously a user can do multiple logins on multiple dates. But we need to actually ignore this record. Why we need to ignore this record in the counting? Because we are concerned about the first login date, and this was the first login date for user ID 5. So we will eliminate this one as well. So we will actually give a temporary alias name to this, like TMP. Here what we will do, where RNK equals to 1, and these dates should also lie between this 90 days of window. Activity date between 2019 04/01 and this upper bound, which is 06/30, and here select, we will name this activity date as the login date, comma count star as user count from this table group by activity date, and we also need to put it in the order by login date ascending. So now we can see this was our expected output. So again, reiterate on the logic part, pretty much straightforward. We first focus on that segment where we could identify what was the first login date for each user, and how we were able to do that. This was the inner subquery which just generated the login dates and their ranking for each user. And with the help of this rank 1 filtration, we were able to get those activity dates for each user which will be considered as a login date. And since for our final output we had to put this condition as well to make it in the 90 days of boundary, and then we did a group by on activity date in order to count the distinct user count. So that was the complete logic. I hope you got the idea how this is getting executed. So try this question by your own for sure. If you have any different logic, then I would love to hear it and put it in the comment section for sure. Maybe among these 3 questions, this was something which I think people would enjoy solving it. So yeah, let me know in the comment section which question did you enjoy the most. So that's what I had for this SQL video. I'm pretty sure you would have enjoyed all these questions. And as I said, please try to solve it, because SQL is something which is really important for your interviews. I kept on saying this thing. So if you are still feeling that you do not have ample amount of questions to practice, this series is something which is really helpful. So do watch it and solve all these questions, and let me know your feedbacks, thoughts, comments, whatever you want to share in the comment section, and share it for the better reach so that other aspiring data professionals can also solve these kind of questions. And I will see you guys really soon with another part of this SQL Interview Pro series. Till then, just keep exploring data.